My Lords, I rise to speak to Amendment 222. Human trafficking is one of the greatest global scourges of our generation. Globally, 66,520 people were identified as victims of human trafficking in 2016, a 40% increase on those identified in 2012. Even this number may represent less than 1% of the real scale of the problem. Identifying and assisting victims of human trafficking is complex because their situations are complex and hidden. Someone may start their journey as a migrant but end up exploited by their vulnerability and become a victim of human trafficking. The situation of a person that has been trafficked is desperate, stripped of agency, power and dignity, often in an unfamiliar country with little way out. This is an issue which significantly affects women and girls. Of all the victims of human trafficking in Europe, 70% are women and 11% girls. So a focus on tackling violence against women rightly seeks to address human trafficking. Many of these women will be victims of sexual exploitation, which makes up 76% of all human trafficking cases in the EU. Human trafficking is predominantly a cross-border crime. Trafficking networks can often span several countries or continents as victims are recruited and transported from one country to another. So collaboration is key to identification and assistance. In 2016, only 326 of the 3,805 potential victims referred to the UK's national referral mechanism were UK nationals. So over 90% of potential victims of modern slavery were foreign nationals. Across the EU from 2010 to 2012, there were 5,611 EU citizens prosecuted for trafficking, and almost a quarter of these were prosecuted in a different EU country. This demonstrates the need for strong collaboration, information sharing, and cooperation between law enforcement and justice systems to protect vulnerable people from being trafficked. This country, my lords, has a proud history as a world leader in tackling modern slavery and human trafficking, supported by the commitment of our Prime Minister. Our modern slavery bill is at the forefront of legislation to ensure we are equipped to properly tackle this issue. We have this moment in history to define the country we want to be. We should be seeking to maintain our proud record and build on it, to ensure that we remain at the forefront of the fight against trafficking and oppression of women and girls. One of the keys to this is our role in Europol, which the UK law enforcement community, particularly the National Crime Agency, identifies as its most immediate priority. Europol's commitment to coordinating the response to human trafficking and modern slavery is key. In 2016, Europol's Operation Siconia Alba identified 549 potential victims and launched 102 further investigations in the space of a week in a coordinated effort which spanned 28 nations. We know that the government has rightly made its intentions to remain a part of Europol known and the desire to remain an active partner. Information sharing is the key to safety and security across the EU, and it is essential that we maintain our current access to exchange law enforcement intelligence from other European nations. We know too, though, that this is possible outside of the EU, as a number of countries such as Norway, Switzerland and the US have operational agreements with Europol that allow access to intelligence. But an operational partnership such as this does not include access to the Europol information system, which pools information on suspected and convicted criminals and terrorists from across the EU. However, the EU is as much in need of our information and intelligence, so an agreement should be in the mutual interests of both parties. Tackling cross-border crime and terrorism requires us to seek the strongest possible collaboration across the EU, and I know that this is under negotiation. So I call on my noble friend the Minister to reassure the House at this committee stage of the bill that these key concerns are being addressed in the negotiations. It is an agreement that I am looking for. I'm not so convinced about an annual report, but if an annual report would lead to an agreement, then it would be a good first step. We must ensure that we are able to build on our strong historic anti-trafficking record, and I ask for the Minister to ensure that post-March 2019, Britain will use its newfound freedom to continue to lead the way on these crucial issues of justice.
I'd briefly like to say one or two words. Not least, I thought it might be appropriate to have at least one male voice speaking in the debate about violence against women and girls. I declare my trusteeship of CORAM, which contains the CORAM Children's Legal Centre, which often gives advice and tries to help the victims of domestic abuse, particularly children, including girls and boys. As ever, these are probing amendments. We don't expect the noble lady, the Minister, to come up with a list of magic solutions. However, the two key areas which we are concerned with, one is a reassurance that the levels and types of cooperation that are currently in place will, to the best of the government's ability, continue to be as effective and even more effective in the future. And secondly, that some of the sources of funding, some of which are plugging important gaps that domestically we have not been able to fill in the recent past, will not be sort of unwittingly left behind. Now, nobody for a moment suggests that Her Majesty's government doesn't care about these things. I Googled the Prime Minister and violence against women and girls and saw that one of the first speeches she made when she became the Home Secretary in 2010 was talking to a Women's Aid conference. She said, and I quote, "As both Home Secretary and Minister for Women and Equalities, I believe I have a unique opportunity to bring about real change in the lives and status of women in this country, and my ambition is nothing less than ending violence against women and girls." And I'm sure the noble lady of the Minister would agree with that. So I do think what we are looking for is not chapter, book and verse. The government has put a huge amount of effort into this. I returned to Google and I looked at the Home Office website on violence against women and girls. It has no less than 7 pages full of a whole variety of initiatives and policy statements